No barking. Hi, George. Good morning. No barking, guys. It's the very last day of the stitch along. So we're gonna do this little pudding, and then I'm gonna show you how to tidy up the back, just like always. Good afternoon, George. It's morning here. It's only 10. David's still sleeping. Okay, so we've got a little Christmas pudding here. What is that? Okay. Got a little Christmas pudding here, so I'm going to do brown for the bottom and then white on the top with a little silver line, and then green leaves and some red berries. Obviously, you can do more or less just depending on what you want to do, you know? So let's go. It's really gloomy here today. There's like hardly any sun, so I've turned on all the lights, and we'll see if this will work. So, I put my pen back, so I'm just going to wing it. But I'm going to do the satin stitch from here down all the way over. So just like always, straight, parallel lines. I'm using all 6 strands. I'll make it look a little fluffy, but I think that's all right. And before you get started, make sure that your hoop is tight. So if you saw me, I was kind of pulling along the edges, and that's because I want to make sure that there's no loose fabric. And then if you don't do the bottom nice and neat, you can always go back and just back stitch a little edge there. But it just depends on how neat that you make it. And mine's not particularly tidy on the bottom. So of course you can do a back stitch if you want. And I'll just jump over here and finish the other side. Then we'll do the white. And then as always with white, you can choose regular white, B5200, or Blanc. There's lots of different whites to choose from. If you like an icing look on yours, then you could definitely do just a plain white, or if you wanted like a custard on the top, you could do like an ecru, or even like a, I think the B5200 has a slightly, hi Meg, like off-white look to it. I don't think that'll help any, but it's just really gloomy and dark today, unfortunately. So what's everyone doing for Christmas Eve? Do you have any Christmas Eve traditions? Do you do anything fun? Okay, just like that. And then like I said, if you wanted to do a little back stitch around the outside edge, you can do, and it will just cover up all of these little stitches that maybe didn't. Chilling with films, that sounds amazing. I have 2 little projects to do, but they're gifts, so just at some point today, I'll finish them. And then, yeah, same for us, I think. I've got a gap in my hoop here. Hello. So again, I've just dug in with all 6 strands because 1, it was easier, and 2, I didn't mind if it was a little bit fluffy. If you want it to look more smooth, then definitely go in with less. 3 or 4 is always a good number. Okay, so we've got the brown done. The bottom is so cute. And if you do the back stitch around the bottom, make sure that you try to keep them all the same stitch length. And that way it'll make it look a little more tidy. Okay. And now with white, I just have B5200 here, or I have Anchor Threads white, which is number 1, if I can find it over here. Here it is. So to me, one of them is like a little bit, not yellowy, but like off-white, this one. Or this one is like white. Merry Christmas. So yeah, it just depends on how you want it to look. So again, I've done 6 strands on the bottom. I'm going to do 6 strands on the top as well. And you see this little like puckering here? It's because there's, my hoop was not tight enough when I stitched it. So it's gonna have this little pucker until I close the back and make it nice and tight. So as I'm stitching, I'm gonna wanna keep this pulled tight just in case. Because I don't want it to happen more. So I just had to take a drink. And again, I don't have the pen. They're all upstairs, but you're just gonna wanna make the same parallel lines. And then you could continue the back stitch around the outside edges if you wanted to make it look the same around the whole thing. Then after this, I'm gonna take that same kind of silver Anchor Threads Marlet thread that I used for the Christmas cracker and do a little outline for this like separation of the white and the brown. And it's just something I've always done for I make wood slice ornaments as well. And for the Christmas pudding wood slice ornaments, I I always put a little line there and they look really nice. Shimmer. So normally when we're finished with like the last day of stitching, we have like an extra day where we do like little bits and bobs, like if you want to add French knots anywhere, like a catch-up day. If you didn't finish one of them, then you can do it then as well. But obviously tomorrow's Christmas, so today is the last day. So I'll show you how to finish your hoop after I finish the pudding. This will be a bit of a longer video. And again, you could just go and look at the other ones if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Because like at the end of every stitch along, I showed how I close it up. So it's not like new, but for those of you who have never done a stitch along, I'm going to do it so that everyone can see. And then this is where I'll do my back stitch. So far we have satin stitch and back stitch. Okay, so that's what we have so far. I'll zoom it out so you can see them all together. So cute. That does really bother me though, these puckering. But you can see how loose it is. So I must have a gap in my hoop right here. So make sure that you check. Okay, let's get out a little bit of this one. Have I got any from before? It's really small. Let's try. And then obviously with these threads, I told you they were really slippery, but another kind of disadvantage is that you can't really like get them wet to put the thread through the needle. So normally people would like lick the end, if you know what I mean, which I never do that anyways, but I know some people that that's the only way that they can get their needle to be threaded. Whereas with this one, because they fray on the ends like that, it'd be good for hair. I'm just gonna do the same back stitch that we did for the outline, just here for the middle. I would do a stem stitch to kind of hide those lines, or hide the stitches, but because it goes up and down, sometimes the stem stitch can look a little funny. And plus I kind of like that the back stitches around the outside, you can see it, and then you can also see it in the middle. Alternatively, or alternately, I always get those mixed up. You could, you could use like a silver thread for the inside, or even like a light gray would be quite nice. And then if you don't like seeing the stems Hi, Sandra. If you don't like, not the stems, if you don't like seeing the individual stitches, you could whip it. I'm not a big fan of whipping in the middle. Normally, if I wanted to whip this, I would do it first and then do the rest of them, meaning then do the brown, then do the white, but it's fine. And I've got that one brown thread that is sticking up, driving me crazy. Okay. Okay, so we've got that so far. Let's see if I can make a little. And then we can do the berries and the leaves. It's kind of like a backstitch kind of day. Because I think almost everything is satin stitch and backstitch. Now with this one, you could do like 3 really big fat French knots with all 6 strands. 3 wraps, that would probably just about do it. You could do a satin stitch right across the middle of these. There we go. It's up to you. I've got this patterned tablecloth at my parents' house, and it's so hard to see where I left my threads because all the threads are the same colors as the tablecloth. And then I'm just going to do an outline of the leaves. I'm not going to actually fill them in all the way. I've got 3 strands of a light green. Everyone is quiet today. Then we'll jump right over here and continue doing this one. And of course you could fill them in if you want to. I'm just going to do the outline because I think there's so much like other green stuff, so I think that'll be nice. But obviously use your best judgment on your own. If you want to make it filled in, go for it. Okay, let's see how these look with some French knots in the middle. Normally, I don't like doing a random French knot without showing you exactly how to do it. But I think you should be able to. We'll just see. We'll just check and see what it looks like. Okay. So I think most of you already know, but if you don't, you're gonna go up all 6 strands, and then we're gonna wrap it 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and leave it slack. You don't want to make it really tight. And put it right back down in there. Now that I've showed you, I think I don't really like it. Because they don't fill out the berries all the way. I'll just add some more. Like a bunch of berries. Yeah, instead of just 3. So again, you're gonna wrap 1, put your needle on the top. 1, 2, 3, and then put her back down. So what I mean is that they don't fill up the space, so it looks a little bit strange. They look like a bit like they're floating a little bit. So actually, I would do a satin stitch with maybe like a backstitch outline instead of having the 3 berries to look like that. But I'll add some more and maybe it will save it. But again, Lizetta says, I really need to practice my French knots. I find them really tricky. So a good way to practice French knots would be to go back to my YouTube channel, and you're going to want to look for the Stitch Along. Let me see. The Holiday Stitch Along. And then there's a day there that I do French knots, and I show exactly how to do it step by step. But then also I show like how the different strands look. So this is 6 strands and 3 wraps, but you can do 1 strand if you wanted with 1 wrap, 2 wraps, 3 wraps. It's totally up to you. Just trying to fit 1 more in there. Hi, Ian. I don't know if he's still on or not. But the other thing that French knots do, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, is if you pull too hard, or if you find that you've gone through a knot on the back like I've just done, and if you have a loose hoop, good, that's the dehumidifier, you'll find that the fabric will get loose all around like this. And it gives you this really, it's like one of my like I do not like it at all. It's like my biggest pet peeve. But you really need to keep your fabric nice and taut and tight. So it should make that kind of noise like that. So the bunch of berries don't look as bad as I thought, to be fair. There are 6, and I definitely need 1 more because it's like an even odd number thing, isn't it? So just be careful when you're pulling them through. But yeah, if you want to work on French knots, I highly recommend going to one of the old Stitch Along videos, and then you can have a look how to do them. So I've got that finished. Okay, so this is the time when I would go back through and really make sure that you like all of the things that you've done, because once you finish the back, you really don't want to work on it anymore. So even doing a couple French knots here or thinking, oh, I might just add a little star later, it makes the top of the fabric not as tight, which makes it kind of sag a bit, especially when it's up on the wall. And then you can see all of those ripples when it's hanging up. and you really don't want that to happen. So I like to go back through, make sure, I just take it off really quick, make sure that all of the threads are actually in there, meaning that none of these little back threads, you know, the tails are kind of going through the hoop and onto the other side. Oh, Meg, that's so nice. She said, just had such a nice surprise. Steve's finished work early, so you can come home on I can't tell if that's a thread or if I've just missed one, but there's like a little loop there. So you have like a nice chilled Christmas Eve. That's so good. So yeah, just go back through each one and have a little look. So like I would definitely want to add so like a skin color to my Santa, and then I didn't actually do the whites around his eyes there. So I'll go back and do that. I think everything else is all right. Maybe a couple little French knots here. And then if you used a Pilot Frixion pen, like I do recommend, you're going to want to blow dry it so that you can get all of these extra lines off. So even things like I didn't actually do it on the lines here, then you need to blow dry that. If you use the water erasable pen, then you will take it out of the hoop, and you can either use a spray bottle or you can just lightly rinse it off, and you're gonna lay it flat to dry. So if you've got a radiator, those work really nice. If you want to blow dry it, you can, but I would do it slowly, so not on the highest heat setting. And you want to use cold water, because red threads are notorious for bleeding no matter what brand that you have. I've had DMC ones bleed, I've had Anchor ones bleed. The red ones seem to always bleed. So be careful that you use cold water, not warm, not hot, or you will have just tiny little, almost like a little radiance, you know, coming out from where all your red threads. So the next thing that you need to do, after you're happy with it and you've done all that you can, you've blow dried it all off, is we're going to tidy up all of these edges here. And let me just go get the big scissors, because the big scissors work better. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is kind of look for the shortest part or point. So mine is actually pretty much all the same, so it doesn't really work. But because we've been working on this for kind of 2 weeks now, the edges are a bit frayed. So you're just going to want to trim that a very little bit. And before we do that, we're just going to make sure that the hoop is tight and that the top is tight. I've got the one that you need pliers to hold and then a screwdriver on the end to turn it. So I can't actually tighten it now because I don't have those tools with me. So I'm just going to make sure that my fabric is nice and tight, and that some people like the outer hoop to be a little bit lower so it makes like an edge like that. And some people like it so it's completely flat like that. Can you tell the difference? It's just very, very slight, but some people like it lifted up like that. If you do, put it how you want it. And then we're just going to take the scissors and we're going to go around the edge. And it doesn't have to be like a scientific method or anything like that. All you're doing is just tidying these loose frayed edges. And obviously these are not fabric scissors, so I'm probably making it worse. I'm just doing mine a little bit because I want to have some extra fabric to work with here. Okay, so we're almost all the way around. Next, you're going to want to take a white thread. Now, I often use a pearl cotton for this. because you can get like a big spool of it for cheaper than you can one skein of white thread. Like in the end, it breaks down to be cheaper. Or if you can get a spool of just white cotton, you can use that. Okay. Don't want to lose my needle. Okay, but this time I just have some plain white. And what you're going to want to do is lay it flat like this, and then lay the white thread all around the edge. Yeah? Make sure that they overlap. So the beginning is here, and the end is over here, and we're just going to snip it. Thread the end, but don't knot the other end. And we're going to do a running stitch all the way around the edge. And what I mean by edge is like literally the edge. So one of the other mistakes I see is people, they will do it kind of like here, and that's too far in. But you also don't want to be too far out, because when you pull them together, then the thread could go through the woven fibers of your fabric. So there's pros and cons to each, but this is a good distance there. And this will take a minute, so I'm sorry about that, but you're just going to go in and out, in and out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then pull. And you don't want to pull it all the way. You want to leave a tail there, like that. So in and out, all the way around. Like I said, this is like one of the most boring parts of embroidery, I think. I mean, it's exciting because like you're done with your hoop and you finished it and you're like, yes, I did it. But at the same time, I always end up saving like a bunch of these to do at the last minute, because that's like my least favorite part. Whoops, too close. Just want to go round and round and round and round. I'm halfway. And then when you're finished with your running stitch, you're going to cinch the two together. So you're going to pull the thread on each side and then tie a double or triple knot. And that will make it so that if anything happens to your fabric, you can always take it out of the hoop. So a lot of other stitchers, they will cut the fabric really, really short, like to there, and then glue it on the inside of the wooden hoop so it looks like this. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do that, go ahead. I did try doing that before, like ages ago. But I found that, one, the glue is not really good for the fabric. So if anything happens to it, you cannot take it off. And yeah, having like an art background, you really want to avoid any kind of glue if you can help it. Especially on fabric. It's just so permanent. So the good thing with this way is that if you leave some extra fabric around the edges, if you ever change your mind and you decide that next year you want to make it into a banner, or you want to take it out and make it into like a little pillow or something like that, then you totally can. You can just cut through this thread, pull it out, and then you just literally have a big round piece of fabric that you can do whatever you want with. You can make it into a banner, make it into a pillow, you can frame it in a frame, you can staple it to a canvas, you know, those like canvas stretchers. So they're essentially frames, but you staple it around the outside. You could frame it like that. There's all kinds of things that you can do with it. Essentially, you've just decorated the front of a piece of fabric. So any kind of way that you use fabric, you could do. And Meg, that's so true. She said that they are brave to glue it. The other thing with glue, even like the tacky glue, is that if you put too much on, if you put too much glue on here, and it seeps out onto here. This is the front of your embroidery. So you're gonna be able to see it through the back. So it's not ideal. The Copper Bee, hi. Okay, apologies. The last video is always really long because of having to finish. Okay, so I'm almost finished. Let's do a bigger one like that. So I like to leave about that much, like the same as my stitch length. Yeah. And then the back looks like this. And what you're gonna wanna do is kind of even these threads up, because obviously one is much longer than the other one. So I'm gonna pull this one a little bit. Yeah, and then you're gonna pull them both at the same time. Why are you doing that? Oh, there is a knot in the thread. Yeah. And obviously there's too much thread here, but that's fine. So you're gonna pull it tight and then tie another knot, and then you're gonna pull it a little bit tighter. Now this is where it can get dicey because this is just regular 6-stranded cotton, so it is a little bit fragile. So you don't wanna pull it too tight or you're gonna snap the thread, but you do wanna pull it tight enough so that you can get it nice and snug. I like to do one more. And then we're just gonna do a little bow. And then snap those like that. Now, as far as framing, you can leave it up like this. You can paint the outside of the hoop, obviously before you tie it. You can take it apart and paint it. You can put a little ribbon through the top of here. You can put a ribbon here in the front if you wanted, around there. You can put a ribbon there and hang it from the ribbon. You can put kind of a nail. Lost my needle. Goodness gracious. You can put a nail in the wall and then hang it straight from the nail, so actually you don't see anything else. Do you know what I mean? You just see the circle on the wall. But yeah, there we go. So the stitch along is done. It's Christmas tomorrow. I hope you guys have a lovely holiday with your family or friends, dog, cat, fur babies, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, tag me in your finished pieces at the Barmy Fox or the Barmy Fox SAL. That is the hashtag. And yeah, I'll see you later. Oh, Lizetta said, yay, my berry French knots weren't a disaster. Amazing. She says, still 4 days to catch up on, but glad I joined today. Aw, good. Well, guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas. Really enjoy your time. I probably won't be on much. I do want to show you our Christmas tree because I think it looks really beautiful this year. And kind of like the little decorations that we've got around the house. But other than that, I'm gonna leave you to enjoy your time with your family. So yeah, I can't wait to see all of your hoops, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye.